All right, everybody, let's talk a little bit about employment and the loanable funds market. Okay, so we're talking about a country at full employment that produces both consumer and capital goods. So this is just a typical PPC, what you've seen a bunch of times. So part A, we have to draw a correctly labeled graph of the PPC. So we want consumer goods on the horizontal and capital on the vertical. All right, so consumer down here, capital here, and then our production possibilities curve. All right, so then indicate a point in your graph labeled X that represents the full employment and a possible combination of both goods and services. All right, so we know we're at full employment, which means that we are going to be producing on the production possibilities curve. Okay, so remember, this is not part of the answer, but just remember that anything in here means that you have, unemployment of resources, whether that's unemployed people or factories or whatever, and then points out here you can't do. That's sort of in the unattainable zone. So oops, didn't mean to delete all of that. There we go. And now let's get back to the question itself. Okay, so now we'll go down to B. Assume there's an increase in the country's national savings. Okay, so our savings are going up. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the loanable funds market showing the change in the real interest rate. So a correctly labeled graph of the loanable funds market is going to have Q loanable funds here and real interest rate here, downward sloping demand, upward sloping supply. And remember that the loanable funds market, we'll label that, the loanable funds market, the suppliers are savers. Okay, so it's you and me and money in our savings account. So when we save more, supply shifts to the right and the real interest rate falls. Okay, so you don't have to say this, but you can just show it there, but just in case. All right, now on to point C. On the same graph from part A, show another point labeled Z that represents full employment and a new combination of consumer goods and capital goods consistent with the increase in the national savings. So this one actually for a second tripped me up. If we're saving more, then what that means is that money, that extra money is going to get invested. So before we had a certain combination of capital and consumer, but the savings is going to increase capital stock and it's going to move us toward the capital side of things. We're making more capital resources than the consumer resources that we were making before. I know it might be tempting to think that you have you get a new PPC that is further out to the right. I understand why people might think that, but that includes time. Okay, and this is not saying that time is passing. It's just saying that the savings rates are changing. Okay, so that's something to keep in mind there. Okay, so Z, that's C. And referring to your answer in part C, will the long run aggregate supply curve shift to the left, right, or remain the same? So for part D, when we are saving more and the real interest rate falls, LRAS will shift right, because notice it's explained, right? So we need a what and a why, because of the increase in capital stock or the increase in IG investment or something along those lines. Okay, thanks very much, everybody. Take care.